Today she came out in favor of magic mushrooms. Now, most of you are not up to date on what this is all about. If what you think she's talking about is that the psychedelic mushrooms should be recreationally allowed, that's one question. But the bigger thing is that these have immense mental health benefits. Now, most of you are not quite at a place where you can accept that what I just said is true. So I would encourage you to research it. I've personally had conversations with people who are the top doctors in this field. So literally, I have had personal conversation, standing in the same room with one of the greatest experts in the country on this. And let me tell you, there are a lot of people with PTSD, a lot of people with various mental conditions in which a little bit of doctor-regulated exposure to psychedelics is sort of a complete cure. Now, you're talking about fixing things that are completely unfixable with other technology as far as we know. And no side effects. All right. Nobody, as far as I know, there's probably been 0 cases of a doctor-supervised person taking magic mushrooms, the psychedelic ones, and having any kind of a bad mental outcome. Probably never. I mean, I don't know that that's true, and that's not even true of aspirin. Keep in mind, aspirin kills people. Anything you do in the medical world has some risk, but I don't even know if as long as you're taking mushrooms that you know where they came from and you can measure the dose and stuff and the doctor's watching you, not really a risk. Yeah, and somebody's saying here in the comments, it's often a single treatment. Think about that. One experience with mushrooms can change your whole life in a positive way. Now, I've said before that I did mushrooms once when I was in my 20s, only once. I've also said it was the best day of my life, easily, not even close. It was the best day of my life, and it changed me permanently. Taking mushrooms allowed me to see the world as a simulation, meaning that from that day on, I no longer thought that the limits that I could see in my environment were necessarily real. For example, when I tried to become a cartoonist, did that seem like a realistic goal? Did it seem realistic that I would go from cubicle guy to arguably most successful cartoonist in the world right now? At least for adult properties. There's kid properties that are bigger. That wasn't reasonable, but I had experience with psychedelics, and I just don't view my world as limiting me. I view it as something that I change on the fly because it's a subjective world. And so if it's a subjective reality, I changed it to be the way I want. You've most of you know of Christina. If you were to say to yourself, if you've seen her, I don't know, if you've seen her Twitter or her Instagram, do you look at her and you say to yourself, well, it makes sense that she's with this guy? Yeah, it totally makes sense. Why wouldn't she be? No, it doesn't make any sense. But I don't live in a world where any kind of restrictions like that apply to me. They just don't. So I continually run my life as though it's a simulation. Now, only in recent years I've used the word simulation, but I had my own version of it I wrote about in the Dilbert Future back in the 90s. It was the same idea as the simulation, just sort of different framing. But because of mushrooms, I completely changed my view of reality in such a productive way that it made my life an ongoing wonder. So that's a pretty good deal.